Welcome, welcome, folks. Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandajis here with you. Live here on 13 News Now Plus. Now, we've got something brewing potentially in the Northeast Gulf, and we're going to talk a lot about that today as we get into HHL Live tonight. On July the 15th, here we are smack dab in the middle of July, 6 weeks into the hurricane season. We've had 3 named storms so far. Could we be looking at our 4th, which may be named Dexter? Right now, it's known as Invest 93L. If you're new to the program, we'll break down exactly what that means. It's kind of a code word or an acronym or an expanded acronym, if you will. But first, let's start with our tropic topics for today. Invest 93L over Florida at the moment. Yesterday, it was just off Florida's east coast. It's been slowly building off to the west. Tried to get its act together a little bit before making landfall, but now it's over land, away from its water source, so it's kind of petering out. It's not going to be over land for much longer, probably in the next 12 to 18 hours, probably sooner than that, actually. It'll move west off Florida's west coast and then build into the Northeast Gulf. And at that point in time, we'll watch for the development window to open on up. And depending on exactly where it tracks, if it stays a little farther south over open warm waters of the Northeast Gulf, we'll likely see some development there. If it hugs the coast or stays just inland, of course, development would be greatly limited as it's away from its fuel source, the warm ocean waters. And that part of the Gulf, water temperatures are in the mid-80s, so certainly warm enough to sustain some tropical development. And overall, atmospheric conditions, because you don't just need warm water, you need favorable atmospheric conditions as well, look marginally favorable as it gets into the Gulf, but then eventually some shear will kick on in, and you'll see exactly what I mean with that as we walk through Futurecast, because it does look like it'll be a sheared system as it builds to the west. So moderate chances of it developing right now. Hurricane Center just put out their update at 20 minutes ago, and no change really. 40% odds in the short term in 48 hours, 40% in the long term in 7 days. That puts it firmly at moderate chances of becoming a tropical system, or a named storm, I should say. All right, let's break down what an invest actually means. So we're looking at Invest 93L now. Invest is an investigative area, a wave to monitor for potential development. Of course, we put the development odds in 2 terms, in 48 hours or a longer term duration of 7 days. 93 is just a record number. It rotates from 90 to 99 and recycles. And the L is just a basin indicator. The L means it's in the Atlantic Basin. If it had an E behind it, we'd be talking about a potential system in the Eastern Pacific. All right, tropical cyclone life cycle. Right now, we're at the stage of a tropical wave or an invest, right? So it's disorganized. It's currently over land, doesn't have a defined center of circulation, really. But up next could be a tropical depression here. That's when we start to get our wind speeds picking up a little bit, but staying under 39 miles per hour. Now, at this point, does not get a name. It does not get a name until it approaches 39 miles per hour or greater, becoming a tropical storm. Then it would get a name, and that next name on the list, the 4th name on the list this season, is Dexter. And this is a new addition to this 2025 storm list because it replaces another storm that was retired. With more on that, let's toss it over to my colleague, Taylor Stephenson, for more.
The 2025 list of tropical cyclone names features a new name. That new name is the D name, Dexter. Dexter replaces the previous D name, Dorian. The origins of Dorian started off as a struggling tropical wave. That wave became Tropical Storm Dorian on August 24th, 2019. Dorian made its first landfall in Barbados a few days later. Within 4 to 5 days, Dorian intensified into a Cat 5 hurricane in the western Atlantic and made landfall in the northwestern Bahamas. Then, what made Dorian particularly interesting is that the storm practically stalled near the Bahamas, bringing tropical storm force winds to the country for nearly 3 days straight. After that, Dorian made its way north and made another landfall in Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, as a Cat 2 hurricane on September 6, 2019. On Ocracoke Island, storm surge trapped residents in their attics and damaged NC-12. The storm also produced 19 tornadoes in North Carolina, heavy rainfall across the East Coast, and rough surf and high rip currents in our local waters. 13 News Now provided team coverage of this event. Dorian was the only retired name from the 2019 list. For 13 News Now, I'm meteorologist Taylor Stephenson.
And boy, Dorian was a doozy. As Taylor mentioned, it stalled pretty much right over Great Abaco Island in the Bahamas and just pretty much stalked the east coast of Florida before driving north and hugging pretty much the geography there of the southeast coastline, making landfall as a Cat 2 hurricane at Cape Hatteras. So we're going off the 2019 list, right? And it's interesting because there's another similarity this season that I kind of see with what's going on with Invest 93L. You go back to 2019, and the second named storm of the season was Barry, and it also developed in the northeast Gulf in 2019, and it moved due west. Now, this was a highly sheared storm, and what I mean by that is that was encountering northerly winds almost the entire duration as it was struggling to develop here and barely made it to Category 1 status. You can see here just ahead of landfall. Now, I was down in New Orleans at our sister station, WWL, covering Barry, helping them out with their coverage. In fact, tomorrow we're going to have Chief Meteorologist Chris in here to talk about this. And we're going to talk about exactly what the possibility here of seeing this as we go on in time here and watch as this develops here in the next couple of days or so. But interesting to see the similarities here. I also think that Invest 93L or possibly Dexter will also be heavily influenced by some shear, as it's already been in its very short life span. Wow, words are tough today. All right, here's a look at Tropical Wave Invest 93L. Again, 30-mile-per-hour winds. We are now below criteria to become even a tropical storm at all. 39-mile-per-hour winds is what we need. But here are the odds of development here. 40% chance in the next 2 days, 40% chance in the next 7 days. There's been really no change over the last 12 hours or really throughout the day today. Infrared satellite imagery here does show a bubbling up of some convection, mostly to the south and southwest of the center, which, as I mentioned, is sitting just due southwest of Jacksonville. So it's already being influenced by shear, and you can really see this if we switch things up and look at the visible satellite imagery, where you can see the blowup of convection here, the higher storm clouds that look a little more puffy, and then the exposed low-level center here, thanks to the east to northeast winds that you can see here in the upper levels that are blowing the convection, the tops of the thunderstorms off and displacing them to the south and to the southwest, exposing that low-level center that we can see making landfall south of Jacksonville. I can't even really say landfall. It's not a named system. It's not really a robust tropical storm at all. But it's an area of low pressure building off to the west, now sitting pretty much over north-central Florida right now. In the next 12 hours, probably pushing offshore into the northeast Gulf. So we switch things over to live radar. I'm going to loop it now over the last hour or so, and you can see that storm center here again, probably like 40 miles southwest of Jacksonville and moving very slowly on off towards the west. Plenty of tropical moisture here, though. We've got very heavy rain, most of which, thankfully, is situated offshore, but still some pockets out by Orlando and off to the north and west. We also have some very heavy rain. And as this continues to track westwards, it's going to take all of that heavy rain with it here over the next 48 hours. So how does the model see things? Short-range modeling here shows it's still very disorganized, trying to get its act together, pretty much hugging the coastline. Again, it's really going to be detrimental if it stays over land. It's going to lose all of its convection, lose all of its organization. It's got to be over open waters. So we want it to stay over land so it's weaker, but if it does track far to the south, there's the possibility that it could be, I don't want to say strong because it's not going to be a strong system overall is what it looks like now. And with shear impacting it, it'll likely stay at least on the weaker side. And when I talk about I think it's going to be influenced by shear for the long duration, is if you go out all the way to the end of this week, it's Thursday. Here we are. Here's the last image of it, which it's interesting in two ways. First of all, the shear, because you can see all the rainfall associated with it is displaced still to the south and southwest of the center, which looks to be right here, with the east to northeast winds aloft, likely keeping this on the weaker side. But also notice how far west it goes. I mean, we're putting it now well to the southwest in New Orleans. Yesterday, it was looking like it may take this turn up into New Orleans or maybe to Mobile. Not the case, at least with this particular model run here. Again, this is a shorter range, takes it out as far as I can go. Is there a possibility this stays out over water longer and maybe heads towards Galveston, Houston area? It's a possibility, can't rule it out. But right now, it's something certainly to watch over the next couple of days. So here is the evolution potential as we go forward in time, again, over Florida now. If it takes a northern track here, little, if any, tropical development as it hugs the coastline there. Maybe dips over water for a duration of time, but doesn't stay over long enough for it to really organize. A little farther to the south, but still not over open water for very long. Would put it probably at a tropical depression or a tropical storm, again, getting the name Dexter. And then if it does move a little bit farther south and west, stays over open water, tracks farther west, we could be looking at the strongest scenario here, which even at that point, maybe a higher, mid to higher end tropical storm possible. I would say more likely, little less likely, and probably unlikely to see it farther to the south here for 93L. Regardless, it's going to bring a lot of rain. You saw the rainfall on radar, heavy rain, 1 to 2 inch per hour rates. New Orleans, the Port Eads over to Lafayette, 2, 3, 4 inches of rain potentially here as, again, this scoots on off to the south over the coming days. Elsewhere in the tropical Atlantic, not much going on. Still pretty quiet. Got a lot of dust and Bermuda high set up pretty much in the central Atlantic. But we are starting to see a little more convection surviving into the main development region, giving an indication it's starting to get primed up, that maybe we could start to see some areas to watch here as we've got some African easterly waves coming off the coast of Africa. You can see this blow-up of convection here. Another one here that survived. I'm pretty surprised how long it survived for. This came off about 4 days ago off the coast of Africa and is still producing some convection, although obviously still encountering some hostile conditions overall. All right, out in the eastern Pacific, we're still looking at a ghost town out here. For the last week, been nothing going on after a very active start to the season there. Usually when the East Pac is active, the Atlantic is quiet and vice versa. But right now we're not seeing activity really in either, with the exception of what would be Investa 93L here. But that's not really in the main development region or in the Caribbean. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out here over the coming days. All right, let's get to yesterday's trivia question. According to climatology, what date is considered the peak of hurricane season? What do you think it is? August 15th, September 10th? Is it Labor Day? Or is it September the 21st, right around the first day of autumn? Well, the actual peak of hurricane season, as we look back at climatology, is September the 10th. And you can see here as we go through time when we log all of the hurricanes and tropical storms, you can see where the peak really is, right around September the 10th. And here we are, July the 15th. So we've got a lot of activity to go, usually. We'll see if we do get that ramp up as we head into August, and then certainly heading into late August and early September is when overall conditions in the Atlantic Basin, you've got a moist mid-levels of the atmosphere, low wind shear, warmest water temperatures you'll get all year with the highest sun angle at that point in time, really kind of building up the heat energy, and overall lift in the atmosphere. That's what you really need. And right now we've got a lot of sinking motion out in the Atlantic Basin, kind of keeping things quiet for now. We'll see if that changes. All right, well, that's it for tonight here on HHL. I want you to scan the QR code, though, to download our 13 News Now Hurricane Guide. It has information on supplies you should have on hand, emergency numbers you might need, and a whole lot more. All right, make sure to join us right back here tomorrow, or every weekday, really, at 8 p.m. on Hurricane Hub Live.